Have you ever been going about your day and then you find it, a mysterious little lump under your skin, and you immediately wonder what it is? It's a super common experience and, yeah, sometimes a little worrying. So today, we're going to get right under the skin of it and talk all about cysts, what they are, why they pop up, and what you should, and maybe more importantly, what you should not do about them. I mean, it happens to pretty much everyone at some point. You're just living your life, and there it is, a small, unfamiliar bump. And of course, your mind might jump to all sorts of worst-case scenarios. But the reality? It's usually far, far less alarming. So what even is a cyst? Well, think of it like this. It's basically a self-contained little pocket of tissue. The best analogy I've heard is a tiny water balloon inside your body. It's a sac, and it's filled with something. Could be fluid, could be air, could be other gunk. But that distinct sac is the key feature of what makes a cyst a true cyst. And these things are not picky about where they show up. You might find one right on your skin, sure, but they can also form deep inside your organs or even around your joints. It's why there are so many different kinds of cysts. Each one has its own unique story. Okay, let's get to the most important point right away. Because I know what you're thinking. Finding a new lump can be really scary. But it is so crucial to know that the vast, vast majority of cysts are benign. That's just the medical term for noncancerous. Now, you should always get a new lump checked out, but you can often breathe a pretty big sigh of relief. All right, so let's meet some of the usual suspects. We're going to go on a little tour of the most common types of cysts. By getting to know them, we can take away some of that mystery surrounding that bump you might be feeling. First up, the epidermoid cyst. These are little pockets filled with keratin. That's the same protein that makes up your hair and nails. They happen when skin cells basically get trapped deep below the surface, and they create this small, firm bump that a lot of people mistake for just a really stubborn pimple. A very close cousin is the pilar cyst. This one is also all about a protein buildup, but it happens specifically inside a hair follicle. And that's why an overwhelming 90% of them are found on your scalp. They kind of feel like a smooth, firm little marble that moves around under the skin. Now let's move over to the joints. Here we have the ganglion cyst. This one's different. It's filled with this thick, jelly-like fluid. They pop up along tendons, which is why the wrist is such a classic spot to find one. Fun fact, back in the day, they were sometimes called Bible bumps from a really old and really bad home remedy that involved hitting it with a heavy book. Yeah, don't do that. Sticking with the joints, there's the Baker's cyst, which shows up exclusively at the back of the knee. This usually isn't a standalone problem, though. It's typically a symptom of something else, like arthritis or an injury that's causing excess joint fluid to bulge out. It creates this feeling of tightness or pressure back there. And finally, let's talk about breast cysts. These are super common, totally benign, fluid-filled sacs that can feel a bit tender, especially around your menstrual cycle. But, and this is absolutely critical, while they are almost always harmless, any new lump you find in your breast should always, without exception, be checked out by a doctor. Okay, but just when you think you've got it figured out, things get a little more complicated. Because, you see, not every lump that looks and feels like a cyst actually is one. And that brings us to a really important distinction, the difference between a true cyst and something we call a pseudocyst, which literally means false cyst. So what's the core difference here? It all comes down to the wall. A true cyst, remember our water balloon, has its own dedicated sac made of a distinct cellular lining. A pseudocyst, on the other hand, is just a collection of fluid or pus that's pooled in a space, but it doesn't have that special, self-contained membrane. A perfect example of this is something many of us are unfortunately very familiar with, cystic acne. You know, that deep, painful, inflamed bump. That's actually a pseudocyst. It's a big pocket of pus that's caused by clogged pores, but it doesn't have the distinct, self-contained sac of a true cyst. A couple of other common examples you might have run into are a chalazion on your eyelid. That's just a blocked oil gland, and an infected hair follicle, which people often call an ingrown hair cyst. In both of these cases, they're walled-off collections of material, but they're missing that true cyst membrane. So that brings us to the big question, right? What is actually causing these things to form in the first place? Well, it's not just random. There are usually some specific triggers at play. You know, cysts can be a response to a lot of different things going on in the body. An infection might wall itself off to contain the problem. Sometimes it's just genetic. Chronic inflammation can definitely trigger their formation, and so can simple mechanical issues, like a blocked duct in one of your glands. All right, let's shift gears and talk about the practical side of this. If you find a cyst, what should you do? Your action plan is every bit as important as understanding what the cyst actually is.
Okay, this is it. This is the single most important piece of advice I can give you. Whatever you do, you have to resist the urge to squeeze or pop a cyst yourself. I'm going to say it again. Do not play dermatologist in your bathroom mirror.
And why am I so serious about this? The reason is simple, but it's a big deal. When you squeeze it, you can actually rupture that sac underneath the skin, spreading all that stuff into the surrounding tissue. This can so easily lead to a much bigger problem, like a painful infection or even permanent scarring. Just don't do it.
So when should you call in a professional? The guidelines are actually pretty straightforward. If it becomes painful, red, or swollen, those are all signs of infection, it's time to make a call. And just as a general rule, any brand new lump or any existing lump that starts to change in size or shape definitely warrants a visit to the doctor.
So, if you do go see a doctor, what can you expect? The good news here is that medical treatments for cysts are typically really straightforward and very effective. A doctor has a few main tools in their toolkit. For immediate relief, they can drain the cyst with a sterile needle. If it's really inflamed, a corticosteroid injection can work wonders to calm things down. And for those stubborn cysts that just keep coming back, a simple surgical removal of the entire sac is the best way to make sure it doesn't return. And let's end the treatment talk on this really reassuring note. For the most part, benign cysts are more of a nuisance than a real danger. A lot of them don't require any treatment at all and can even resolve all by themselves over time. So you see, what started out as a simple question about a little bump on the skin turns out to be a really fascinating story about how our bodies work. Cysts are just one of the countless signals our bodies send us. They remind us to pay attention, to be curious, and maybe most importantly, to know when it's time to seek a little help. So the next time you find a mysterious bump, you'll know not to panic, but to listen to what your body might be trying to tell you.